Hey guys, this is the AFTERBUZZ TV after show for True Detective Season 2, Episode 5, Other Lives.
You're tuning in to the online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans, producing after shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the True Detective After Show on AFTERBUZZ TV. This is a very, very exciting show for us to be doing. Oh my God, I'm so excited, but the vibe here is not the song. Yeah.
Ooh, there it is.
Yeah. Once again, we are absent the white man overbite. Joe Flippo.
God, I miss it every time.
Oh man, I tried to fill in for him last week, but I just
go for you.
It was okay. I had fun with it, but
he's been honing that skill for a very long time.
It felt disingenuous, So this is the AFTERBUZZ TV after show for True Detective Season 2, Episode 5, Other Lives. We're in the back stretch now. We're in the second half of the season, a season that seems to be, thus far, not very well received by the critics.
Not particularly.
I guess we're critics, so we have our opinion as well. But it's definitely, we're here, 66 days, right? 66 days in the future.
66 days later in the city of Vinci.
Yeah. So first and foremost, before we get into the episode, guys, please rate us on iTunes and comment YouTube and all that whatnot. It definitely helps us do the show, and we read literally every comment and we respond to exactly, good and bad. We try to respond to as many as we possibly can. We are a little shorthanded on the panel today. We are absent Joe Braz, the Joes, and Joe Flippo.
The Joes are not in the house tonight.
Yes, but we will carry on in their absence in their stead today.
We have each other, Ben.
Yeah, this is great.
We have each other.
And as much as, maybe the critics or we voiced our opinions on the disappointments with the season thus far, I'm still very much enjoying this show. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Well, good.
So
I'm excited as well.
Yeah, let's get right into it. Let's start with the fact that this episode picks up 66 days after the Vinci massacre.
Yes.
How'd you feel about the time jump?
I think it was warranted. I was interested to see, I guess I was interested to see what the direct aftermath would be after such a horrific scene where everything just went so completely awry. So I feel like I missed out a little bit on that character-wise, but they are fast-forwarding 66 days later, which really isn't that long in the grand scheme of things, and all of our main characters are profoundly affected, it seems, by what happened professionally, personally, emotionally. So, I like these arcs that they're creating, and I like how this shock has settled into each one of the characters. How about you?
Well, okay, the first thought that I had was I like that they jumped away from the linear narrative that we had experienced thus far with the show. Mm-hmm. The first 4 episodes, in contrast to what we had learned about True Detective in the first season, were very, very linear. We didn't have any time jumps. We didn't have the unreliable narrator or anything like that. It was just very much like these characters, the day-to-day, the crime story. So I liked the sort of the mystery that went along with it when we jumped forward, because you start to wonder what happened in that time. I think it's an effective tool in storytelling in general. And I was pretty satisfied with a lot of the changes. She says, Bezzarides says at one point, is it Bezzarides? It's never too late to start all over? I think it's her that says it. It's her. Yeah. It's either her or it's the Angela Barksdale's mom from The Wire, who is...
Oh, Catherine Davis.
Yes. I don't think it's her that says it.
She's a state attorney?
Yeah, she's a state attorney.
Right,
but
okay.
I'm pretty sure it's Bezzarides that says it. And it's never too late to start all over. And that's kind of what they did with this episode. And it's weird that as fans and critics, there has been so much criticism of the season to this point that you would, in fact, get just a reset, to some degree, halfway through the season. But for the most part, I just thought that the switch up of that linear narrative we've experienced so far was very effective, and I enjoyed it.
What I did like was seeing how the dust has settled in the grand scope of this world. And the juxtaposition of how that dust has settled for our main characters, which is not very much so. They're trying to move on with their lives. They're trying different things. A lot of them have been, I guess, Annie's been demoted.
Right.
Woodrow is the most uncomfortable he's been yet in a suit, tie, doing insurance fraud.
Right.
So he likes the bike.
Right.
As he loves to say.
He likes the bike, yeah.
And Valcoro lost his mustache, man. The stash is gone.
Yeah, so why don't we take this as a good opportunity to just jump straight into his character?
Yeah, okay.
So I think we've established at this point that he's the most sympathetic character in True Detective Season 2. He is essentially our main character. He's the one that, right?
I'd say so.
Week to week, especially last week with his sort of more sober moments, he's been the character that I've, each time he's on screen, and I alluded to this last week, that he's the guy that I'm kind of rooting for. And it's especially because he's kind of in like this mentor role a little bit now, or he at least was last week, and not so much now because they're not really all connected so much anymore. But I liked him losing the mustache. You see the scar on his lip. He has this great moment when he finds out that the guy that he killed allegedly was not, in fact, the man that raped his wife. And that was a really, really wonderful moment of acting from him, I thought.
That was so gorgeous to see on camera, to see on my television screen last night. I was so affected by his performance in that moment, and my heart just crumbled for him. Oh, God, that guy's good at acting.
He really is.
At that acting thing.
Yeah.
At that thing they call acting.
Yeah, he's doing a really, really nice job this season.
Stellar. Absolute stellar performance, I thought. He just kills it every time.
He really does, yeah.
You can do no wrong by me.
So we open up, I believe the first time we see him, or at least early on, he's in his apartment. He's got the bolo tie. And
Always.
he's visited by
his lieutenant.
Right, so and he's like, I'm here to let you know you can't stay here anymore. His lieutenant that is a little crooked, right?
Well, yeah.
More than a little crooked.
They all are in this.
In Vinci.
In the Vinci PD.
Yeah, and he says in another scene shortly thereafter in the courtroom, he says he's been clean 60 days, but he's referring to drugs, right? Because he is drinking still.
He is drinking.
Yes. So,
but that's not going to show up on a drug test.
No.
That's fine. So that lieutenant was a little shifty, just sort of popping up in his apartment, asking him about Teague Dixon.
Yes.
Dixon Teague or Teague Dixon?
Teague Dixon.
Dixon.
And that's for if anybody's. He's the heavier set cop that took one in the head and was the sort of weird Vinci cop that was like spying
on Paul
on the meth
taking
lab.
Pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A very weird character, and now in the narrative, considering we never really figured out what was going on with him, and he's gone now.
And he's gone now, but I feel like we're going to discover a lot more about him.
Maybe, yeah.
That's a half-ass prediction there, but he seems to have been poking around in other places rather than just the one case. He seemed to be a little bit ahead of the game in some aspects of this case.
Yes, he was somehow connected to some nefarious stuff going on. So yeah, Valcoro, he's in this new place, and he's a consultant.
A consultant.
He's collecting money from what. Are we to believe that that's just illegal immigrants living, right?
Sure.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah,
There's a few
that's
of
what I
these.
think.
And he's collecting money and trying to get enough money together to get his kid back or fight in court against his ex-wife now. So yeah, I think his story was I was definitely, like, I wrote that his time jump felt the most jarring. I was the most affected by it, I guess.
Okay.
Like I was in on it, and I'm still rooting for him. I think they're doing a great job with his character. Now let's get into Bezzarides, though.
Well, first, before we do that, did your heart kind of break a little bit when you saw that he was back working as kind of like a henchman and collector for Frank, and just sort of like that guy that like breaks fingers and collects money? I was like, come on, you were going somewhere, I felt like.
Yeah, he was on his way up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but do you get a little bit the sense from him that he hasn't fallen as far back? Like it's a function of necessity. It feels like what he's doing. I don't get the sense. He doesn't feel broken to me. He just feels like he feels neutered a little bit.
Neutered a little. That's a good way to put it.
Like he doesn't feel like he doesn't feel like he's in as bad of a position as he was in episode 1. If that makes any sense.
Sure. Well, he's not playing multiple sides, you know.
Yeah.
Before he was working for Frank, he was working for the PD. He was sort of playing this crazy juggling balancing act, which was kind of impossible.
Yeah.
Trying to inform certain people of certain bits of information. Now he's just kind of doesn't have to think about it. It feels like he doesn't have to worry about the PD. He's off the force. He can just do his thing, collect some money, make some money, and focus on getting his kid back. Do
you find it sort of funny that this is a show that is, the tone of the show is supposed to be about kind of like, not a cult, but there's something like a weird not just straight up crime drama, not just like murderers and robbers being chased by detectives. It's like the first season had that with the Yellow King stuff, and in this season we're supposed to believe that there's the guy in the bird mask, and there's the weird torture stuff, and there's like there's something weird going on, right? There's like there's the stuff that way up north with the commune and all that. So there's something strange going. Dr. Pittler. I think it's funny though that, and Chris Ryan alluded to this on his Grantland article on this episode. He says, I think Pizzolatto wanted to make a show about a bunch of people that the world has chewed up and spit out. And he's more fascinated in looking at their personal problems and their personal lives than the actual crime. Like, we get way, way, way more about these broken people who aren't really very good at their jobs or just in life, really. No. They're all just kind of bad at life. And, like, that's mostly what the show's about. It's not really about the crime so much yet.
But that's what's fascinating about his writing and his style. I mean, you could watch Law and Order and get the same thing every day. You'll get a crime of a week. And
right.
You can dissect it. You can figure out who the guy was, who did this, yada, yada, yada. But here, like, I don't know, like we're really doing a deep dive into these character studies and whether it's pertinent information to the crime at hand. I feel like we're so conditioned to be like, who murdered him? Who murdered him? Who murdered him? Because of all these television shows and procedurals that we watch all the time, that we sort of forget to step back and look at the bigger picture and see what all these different characters and nuances that led to this one thing that brought them all together.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's fair. I certainly am not saying that I think that like Law and Order SVU is a better show or something, or that's what I want from this. Like that's not what I'm looking for out of this show.
No.
But like I do think it's very interesting that a detective show focuses so much on these broken people. And that's the funniest part to me is that I'm beginning to realize Velcoro's he's our crack detective. No. Like he's like the sharpest tool in the shed that we have, you know?
We're all doomed.
Yeah, it's well, I mean maybe he's not, but anyway, so I do my heart did break a little bit to see him back working for Frank again, or I guess working for Frank at all. I don't know if he's ever really worked for him, right?
He's always worked for him.
Yeah, but never in this capacity, right? Not as just like a henchman, because he's a cop. He was like a little bit.
Yeah, not like this. I don't think.
Yeah. So let's talk Bezzarides.
Yeah.
Bezzarides, what are her lines in her sexual harassment?
Stay on the air.
Well, I mean, just watch the show. Let's just say, I just like big dicks.
I like big dicks.
Yeah.
Can't blame a girl.
Yeah. She's it's pretty hilarious.
She's so she's so glib about being there in this sexual harassment seminar surrounded by these piggish men who just don't get it.
And they just want to hear, wait, let her talk. Let her
talk. Like, I wouldn't mind being sexually harassed by that sweet thing in the court. Obviously not the line, but that's what I got from it.
Yeah, of course.
That was kind of a funny, sort of cheeky little scene I enjoyed.
There's one of the great shows, I mean, most, in my opinion, and it seems to be in the general consensus, is The Wire. It's like one of the all-time greats at this point. Crime shows. It's great. You got to watch it.
I hear.
They're in early on, after the first season, Lester Freeman, anybody who's watched The Wire, knows that Lester Freeman gets demoted to be an evidence guy, and he ends up being in evidence for a season. It was funny to me to see Ani in the evidence locker, because it was I would have a hard time imagining Pizzolatto hasn't seen The Wire. I mean, everybody's seen that show.
Except me.
Except you. So I thought that was a funny place for her to end up.
It's like the lowest of the low.
Yeah, it's the lowest of the low.
Like literally locked in a cage in a basement.
Yeah.
By yourself, surrounded by inanimate objects.
Definitely.
Could it be worse?
Do we, by the way, and this is an overarching thought, but it's just because of her relationship to her sister and what they talk about the mom, there's a really overarching theme of parenting in this season. Yes. Right? That seems...
Without a doubt.
It's like the backbone of the season. Every one of the characters either is... Yeah, it's like, Taylor Kitsch has this broken mom. He's going to be a dad, right? You do Ani and her sister, and it's like the memories of the mother, and then like the weird father, and their relationship. They were kind of abandoned by their dad on some level from a parenting standpoint, which is maybe why they ended up the way they were. Velcoro trying to figure out if he even is a father actually, or if he's not. And his dad, you have the scenes with his dad, who's the broken down alcoholic. And then lastly, Frank, who's going to maybe be a parent, possibly. Maybe he's going to adopt. And he was, there's just so much. It's not really heavy handed. It's just the most prominent theme in the show.
I agree completely. And, I mean, are you a parent? I'm not a parent.
I'm not a parent.
We need the parents. Where are the Joes? They're parents.
Well, Braz is his daughter had a
grandpa for the second time today. So congrats, Brazzy! Yay! Babies everywhere. Not in my house. I like my dog. So I don't know really where to go with it besides I feel like it's kind of being beaten over our heads a little bit.
It's just a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very obvious thing that everyone is struggling, whether they're running from their past into their future. And it seems, though, that all of our characters, now that I'm sort of talking it through, all of our characters had kind of effed up childhoods.
Right.
Every single one of them that I can tell. And they're striving to be better people to provide for their future families, to be the parent that they always wanted.
Definitely.
Except for Ani.
Yeah, I would agree.
She seems to have no desire to have any children.
Yeah, and she's, speaking of Ani again, I like her glib nature and that she's just pissed at everybody. She's pissed at everyone. This the righteous indignation that she is labeled to have in her meeting with her lieutenant or her sergeant or captain. I should know which he is. The guy that was like, there's been a formal complaint filed last episode. Yes.
Her
sergeant or something?
Probably. I don't know. Her superior.
We'll
call him
her
that.
CO.
There we go.
He's like, you should back off the righteous indignation. It's not a good look for you. Or no, he says, you taking righteous indignation as a stance. Big surprise, right? So that's clearly her MO. But it was nice by the end of this episode that she's back out there with Taylor Kitsch, and then, you started to get into the whatever has happened, the bloody chair and all that.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the True Detective stuff that I kind of want more of.
Of course.
Right?
I like the gore. I like the bloodiness. Show me some good stuff.
And
Sorry,
maybe the last three, we'll get, now that they're going to be this new task, this underground task force, maybe we're going to get a bit more of that. I hope so. I would be a little let down. I am a little let down by the season on the whole, but I would be extremely let down if this season ends with just little smatterings of actually solving the crime, and if it just ends up being this sort of mostly unsolved, but then they catch one. I don't think it's going to happen. It just, there's so much you have to address in 3 episodes. I don't feel like we're that far into this narrative yet. It's right.
The scope is so huge that they're building for us.
Enormous.
Whether it's the Central Railroad line or it's these escort parties. We're in Northern California. We're in Southern California. We're trafficking girls and what's going on?
Yeah,
how are we going to sort of focus?
Yeah, I completely agree. It's oh my goodness, we completely forgot to even reference the scene we were talking about Ray when he beats the crap out of Dr. Pittler. That was a very relevant scene.
Yes.
We probably need to talk about that, actually. We'll finish Ani and we'll touch back on that before we get into Frank.
Absolutely.
It's incredibly overarching. And I'm wondering how they're going to be able to wrap it all up. Because now you would have to tie a lot of very conveniently placed bows to solve a lot of answer a lot of the questions while not seeming overly convenient. You know what I mean?
Sure.
The bird mask to who were these guys in the meth lab? To how did they get Casper stuff? To what was Casper even into? To what's the bloody chair about? To the missing girl? Who's coming after Frank? There's just so much to solve.
There's a lot. I'm imagining it's going. I'm hoping it's going to sort of sharpen to a point where there's just one place to look at. There's an epicenter of what all of this is and all this stems from. But I don't know how I was going to do it. We only have 3 hours left.
Yeah. I had a thought about when Bezarides, when Ani meets Velcoro in the bar and they're talking. So the first thing I noticed, by the way, was I don't know when the teaser for this show came out, if you were like me and watched it 40 times, because season 1 was my favorite season of television ever. So I was just but the song that is being played in that trailer is the song that the girl is playing in the bar in the background of that scene.
Oh,
it's the
I
same
did not
one.
know that. I did not watch it 40 times.
Yeah, well, it's a little over.
Missed that.
And also that she plays, so it's an original song, I suppose. I guess I didn't look into that, but there is a question that I have about that girl. She's always playing in the bar.
Nonstop.
Always. Every time. It's always the saddest song on earth.
Always.
Who is she? Is she does she play 8 hours or 10 hours a day?
Maybe Velcoro's just her number one fan and always schedules his clandestine meetings whenever she's playing.
Yeah, she's always.
I don't know.
That's one of those. I think that's one of those sort of metaphorically poetic sort of things, right? It's supposed to set the. There? Yeah, it's just supposed to set the tone of the season or something.
Set the tone she does every single time we're in that bar.
Just her and her guitar being really sad.
Really bumming us all out.
Yeah.
Being super angsty.
Yeah, so I had the thought, though, that the 6 main characters that we have in 2 seasons of True Detective, every single one of them is an alcoholic. except for Matthew McConaughey, who is someone who doesn't drink because he's had, and the scenes that you see like the first episode of season 1, he's stumbling when he shows up to the house because it was like the anniversary of his dead daughter.
Yeah.
But every single character is an alcoholic except for him, and he is by far the most competent character out of the 6 main characters we've gotten out of True Detective so far.
When we fast forwarded to the future, he was something of an alcoholic.
Well, sure, yeah. But I suppose that is true. But I guess the only like he's just by far the most competent character, right? He's like a total badass. He fights well. He's incredibly smart. He seems to know everything.
Sure.
No other character in the show has been even anywhere near that.
No one's quite as philosophical as he was.
Yeah, it's true.
It's deep. Flat circle.
Flat circle.
That's season 1.
I want to talk about Frank, but before we talk about Frank, I do want to talk about Pittler. Because I think that scene was pretty relevant.
Yes, yes, that unloaded a shit ton of information. Pardon my language, but really, that was a pinnacle moment in this entire season. I feel like, don't you?
Yeah, it broke up on a lot of stuff. This show hasn't done a very good job this season of filling in the blanks as far as like what's going on in any kind of consistent or smooth manner. Like scene to scene, I don't feel like every scene they're filling in a few more little dots. A lot of the scenes just don't feel like they really tell me anything about the crime. It's just I'm finding out more about like Bezzarides, absent father, or like I'm finding out more about the paternity test, or
I feel like I'm finding about a bunch of corruption in Vinci. That's what I find out about more than anything in this show. But
most of the stuff that you would classify as occult or weird, you don't seem to really get. So a lot of information was revealed in this one scene.
Yes.
Beating the snot out of this guy.
Oh man, did he get him good?
I just like that he says his first line, he hits him, or it's before he hits him, and he's threatening him, and he says something about, it's a weird way that he states it. I should have written it down, but it's something to the effect of like, your bravado and aggression is a clear indicator of your absence, or something like. It's some weird line like that, right?
It was kind of awesome and very therapy.
Yes, therapy is exactly. It was a total like psychological therapy line, and then Valcor just hits him and just breaks his nose.
I love that he was so pompous in that moment, Pittler, that he's like, "Oh, well, let me tell you a little bit about what's going on in your head." And he's like, "F that."
I'm just on drugs now. I'm gonna hit you.
I'm just gonna beat you.
So
he was on drugs.
Okay, so this is my question I wanted to ask. So in the scene where Catherine Davis?
Yes, she's the state attorney.
Yes. So she says they found the guy that raped your wife and a few weeks ago. And he's like, "What?" And she's like, once I found that out, then I decided I could trust you because you didn't kill him." And he has that great moment. Did I just imagine that he went up and went and he snorted something?
I didn't catch that.
My roommate, I asked him the same thing just before I came here because I wanted to make sure, but I was very clearly looked like it, and I thought it was too convenient that he had
It
like
just happened to be
Coke or something like that.
Days.
Right? That's what I thought. So maybe I was wrong, but he did seem to be a little bit hopped up when he was beating up Pittler, and that's after he goes to talk to Vince Vaughn, right? He finds out.
No, I think it went state attorney with the confidential investigation. Next time we see him, he's with Pittler, and we close with him banging on Frank's door the next morning.
Okay. So I mix up the two in terms of their continuity.
The timeline, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe he doesn't snort something.
I took it that he was just pissed, and he has this new mission.
Right.
He's livid, and he's going to take it out on this weird, strange doctor who knows a lot more than he's letting on.
He does. So I had a thought about the doctor as well. So you know how we're in Los Angeles, and we've talked about this before. So the vast majority of the world that probably watches the show and to some degree watches our after show or listens doesn't live in Los Angeles. No. The archetypes of these characters and a lot of the stereotypes that we witness on the show, I think it's a disservice. How do I put this? Many of the hosts and reviewers of True Detective live in Los Angeles. They work for companies that are based in Los Angeles, so we're familiar with the landscape.
Like us.
Yes. And we're familiar with the types of stereotypes here.
Sure.
So a character like Pittler, an older, full of plastic surgery, kind of creepy, pretty wealthy type of character, is a character I've met in real life.
We've seen him
a bunch of times at parties. You see him at Starbucks. There's a lot of people with a lot of money and a lot of plastic surgery, and you don't really know what's going on in their life, or
because they can't show you on their face.
Yeah, I mean, that's LA for you.
Yes,
and
it is.
It's not all of Los Angeles, but that's something that I'm actually familiar with. So when I see a character like that, I almost feel like it's less weird to me, as a reviewer that lives here, than it would be for somebody, a fan of the show who maybe works a 9 to 5 in Nebraska or something like that. That's not a character they know. It seems as weird to them as the strange Louisiana characters in season 1 seem to us.
Fair
right?
enough, yes.
And I had that thought when I was watching it, just sort of like this. It doesn't resonate with me as like weird and dirty. It just resonates as like, that's just a guy. I know that guy. Like, whereas to somebody who doesn't live here, that seems just as weird probably, because he is a very strange looking guy, and the whole thing with the plastic surgery and like the young women, it's all very creepy.
The look I've seen 1 million times, but that level of smarminess, I don't see that all the time.
No?
Do you?
I mean,
That level?
a few times at least at parties.
What parties are you going to?
Let's move on.
Well, no, before I move on,
okay.
Back to Pittler, your
Sure.
bestie. You see him all the time.
Yeah.
So he unpacks a lot of information for us.
Yeah, he does.
In his duress, spitting out his teeth, which was really cool. By the way.
He fishes the tooth out.
Oh, yeah. So what does he tell us? He tells us about Tony Chisani, which is the son of the mayor.
Right.
He's
Blackmail.
A pimp with political aspirations.
Yeah.
He and Ben Casper put on these elaborate escort parties that are supposed to be safe havens, but they're also taping these people and taking photographs of these people for future blackmail.
Which is in Bezarides' thing that we saw her. She goes to see the woman who was it her sister? Her sister's missing, right? Is her sister or her daughter?
I think it's her sister,
Her
Vera.
sister. Yeah.
Yeah.
She gets these pictures sent to her from the last address, and that's it seems to be hidden camera photos from one of these parties because she sees that it's Casper.
Of course, because you can't be in a party like this just snapping photos wherever you go.
Yeah, so then you start to wonder why is she taking pictures? Like who is she taking them
these
for?
pictures? Yeah.
Something like that. Who took the pictures?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So there was a lot of information unpacked there.
There was a lot, I felt like.
Yeah.
And not just that. So we also learned that, it was alluded to with McCandless. Is that how you say his name?
I believe so, yes.
The guy who is the co-owner of Catalyst, right?
Yes. I believe so.
Wait, I wrote it down. He was the Santa Clara Railroad co-owner, McCandless, and now it's turned into Catalyst, which has been the spearhead for this whole railroad system.
Is he the guy that Frank sold?
And he's the guy that asked or told Frank to find that footage, find that hard drive.
Right. Oh, okay.
Same
Yeah.
guy.
That guy. Sure.
Sure, because
I know you're talking about.
obviously he's been going to these parties and doing some pretty unsavory things, if you will. So he needs his hands on this hard drive.
5 parcels, Frank says.
5 parcels gifted.
Yes.
At that.
And are we to assume that each parcel is worth $1 million because Frank is missing $5 million?
Well, he said he had 5 parcels before, didn't he?
Yeah.
Just south of Monterey.
So that must be
He wants it back.
Yeah.
Just give it back.
Give me what I lost, right?
Give it to me.
Yeah. That was an interesting scene, and I guess we have to assume. Well, next episode should be pretty great. Actually, there was a lot of stuff. Like this episode ended with some great stuff. Like it feels like So let's keep talking through it so we don't miss anything.
There's so much.
There's a lot to get to.
We're gonna try our best, folks.
Yeah, certainly. So and really quickly, because I don't want to do it in the middle of talking about Frank. I wanted to make a point really quickly about the criticism of the comparisons all over to season 1, right? We've done it on here before, and it's something that's written about a lot, and we promised last week to talk about it less. But my theory is that because of the mythology of True Detective now, that is entirely based on the success of season 1 and the popularity of season 1, it's very, very, very difficult to properly evaluate True Detective Season 2 in a conversation without at some point referencing the first season. I just, in my experience now of having, I feel like 100 conversations, it doesn't seem like, even if I don't bring it up, somebody else does. It's just the first thing that anybody wants to talk about because the tone of the show, the way we want to feel while watching True Detective, or at least me anyway, when I'm watching it, the sort of like my jaws dropped a little and I'm just like, what's going to happen? This is so cool. I want this season to feel that way. Like season 1 was effortlessly cool, and it feels like it either feels like they're trying to make season 2 effortlessly cool, but there's effort involved, or it's like as a fan, I'm just looking for something that is not going to be there. It's just not the same show.
Well,
it's
of course
an
not.
anthology. It's not
a different beast.
So I just wanted to just share that because I just genuinely feel like it's an incredibly difficult task to evaluate this show purely on this one season, these characters, and ignore the first season, because our evaluation of it is so heavily based on what we expect from the franchise.
Well, we only have one common denominator, and that's Nick Pizzolatto.
Right.
So I feel I in the beginning, yes, I had a difficult time separating them just out of expectation and out of hopefulness.
Yeah.
But as we've moved on, I feel like I feel like this is its own beast, it's its own world, and I'm fine talking about it without referencing season 1. I feel like they're completely two different worlds.
Yeah.
And I think that's a testament to Pizzolatto for creating very in-depth worlds, very fully formed and fleshed out. One in Louisiana, one in Los Angeles. That I've sort of let season 1 go and let it stand alone for what it is and focus solely on season 2.
So yeah, I will try to make that the last time we reference season 1 today. I just wanted to point it out because obviously in our profession, when we are supposed to critically analyze each episode, like to every point and have these conversations, we probably have a lot of conversations about True Detective outside of here. Yes. I know I do.
Yeah.
Talk to a lot of people about it before I come on here and want to talk about it, and it just seems like it's a tough task. It's a tall order. But let's move on to Frank Simeon.
Frank Simeon, fallen from grace a bit.
So he is by far the most polarizing part of this show. It seems that there's a lot of negativity surrounding it. Last week I shared a theory that I felt that the other 3 characters existed as part of their own narrative and that Frank's didn't fit, and that I felt that he occupied too much real estate in terms of screen time, and that I didn't think it was Vince Vaughn's fault as much as I just don't think that the character is correctly weaved into this story. It falls flat, and I continue to feel that way. I had a note. Vaughn is a failed character. The relationship between he and Jordan is irrelevant to me. I don't care. I mean, it's at this point when they're on screen together and I want to buy in, I just don't care. Like they definitely like moved us towards a different part of their relationship today because Frank gets a little bit more vulnerable towards the end of the episode. I think he calls her Jordan for the first time. I noticed it. He might have said her name at some other point. I might have missed it. I had never heard him say the word Jordan. So that was like, there was a couple moments in this episode where he's supposed to open up because they're in the house and there's no water stains. They're watching a movie. He comes home after they have their confrontation. So they're trying to change the stakes a little bit, but it's a little bit like too little too late for me. Like the one tone, like every scene that he's in feels like the same scene until this episode. The first 4 episodes, every single scene that Frank was in, I was like, I've seen this 9 times already. And then he had some different scenes. He gets approached, actually, in a club.
I get that. I see you.
Did you notice that when he got approached in the club, that's the first time that he's been approached in 5 episodes as opposed to him approaching someone? In terms of like the crime stuff? Like, he's been walking on people's turf the whole show so far. Walking into rooms.
When the 2 people came in looking for Santos and the guy from Grantland called him the Angel of Death, which I loved. I was like, kind of, yes.
A little bit, yeah.
You know we're going to see that guy again.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a good point. I didn't notice that because he's always been rolling up on everyone. He's the one with the agenda.
Yeah, he's the
one with something to say.
So now he's like in the club and some guy, and he muscles up. He's like, yeah, I'm here now. I don't care. He's not coming back.
Yeah.
Right?
Did he kill him? Did he just run away with no teeth?
I think he killed him. I think that's what we have to believe. He pulled his teeth out and I mean, maybe he didn't, but he says, he says to Jordan, it doesn't matter. You're never going to see him again. Yeah. Whoever he is, he's never coming back or something like that. Yeah. I think you have to imagine he killed him.
Imagine. Maybe right? One of his little henchmen did.
Yeah. How did you feel about Frank this episode?
I agree with what you're saying. I wasn't here last week, unfortunately, so I missed that. I missed what you were saying, but I understand it now that you say it to me, that it sort of exists on its own. Yeah. It's like the detectives, the murder, all over here, and then Frank on this side, doing his own thing, working through his own issues. The only times I really do like him is his scenes with Jordan, or look forward to seeing him on screen, are his scenes with Jordan, because that's when I feel like he unravels a little bit more, rather than putting on this facade of this tough guy who gets stuff done and you know, going legit or talking to the mayor or whatever it is. And that's when he is the most vulnerable, and that's when he is most human to me, and I can relate to him more as a character. And I also I love Kelly Riley and what she's doing with this character. She's really cool.
I think her performance is solid. I like her. Do you have the feeling at all? Because I had this feeling this week where I was sort of thinking about episode to episode. I was like, okay, they find Casper on the side of the road in the first episode. Taylor Kitsch finds him, and he's all mangled, and they start investigating this, and everything to this point. Does it feel like Vince Vaughn's role in the story at this point is kind of not actually relevant? Like the fact that he knew Casper and Casper had his money doesn't add anything to the investigation so far. I guess he gives a lot of depth to Colin Farrell's character.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it changes the stakes for Velcoro.
Yeah, but that's it. He's like a super like tertiary supporting character, as opposed to he's the main character. He's the person we see the most.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Absolutely. I don't know. I don't know. I agree with you, unfortunately, and I don't want to agree with you because I dig Vince Vaughn, and
me too.
I don't want to agree, but I do. He doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah, like it's I
don't need him.
It's its own story. Again, like you could not have the other three, and Vince Vaughn's story would still be the same story. It wouldn't change the stakes almost at all.
What he does is provide a touchstone to Casper and the city of Vinci.
He's kind of he's like the center of it all, right?
Yes.
Everything touches through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess that's where his importance lies, as well as his connection to Velcoro.
Did you feel towards the end, so the final scene when after Farrell finds out that Vince Vaughn has set him up and he's talking to his ex-wife and Frank set me up, she says, I don't know what that means, and he knocks on the door. I had this moment of like, God bless it, Colin Farrell is so much more likable in this season of television than Vince Vaughn. Like, I just like him so much more as a character. I was thinking to myself, I was like, man, I sure hope Vince Vaughn gets what's coming to him. It was not at all like...
I think he's supposed to be, because he's a victim of circumstance. You know, he's been manipulated through and through.
Yeah.
And he's tragic.
Right.
And so, of course, you're going to root for him. Of course you want him to succeed. Nothing goes right for him.
Do you believe that Jordan, at this point, they have all these confrontational scenes, and she knows what he's into, and at one point they're talking, and she says, you're a pimp now, Frank. You know, I know you're running girls through the poker room, and I know what's happening. And she's like, you're a gangster, and he's like, I'm not a gangster. And he has the line, crime exists contingent on human desire. Do you believe at this point, like a woman like that she would be like, it's okay that you're trafficking, you're like selling women? Like, I don't know that I really believe she'd stick around. He's kind of a dick, and like,
she was with him before he went legit.
Yeah.
You know, I think
maybe.
I think she was part of the catalyst to urge him to move forward and become legit and get out of town and live on a farm or whatever it is, live like a normal person life. And I think she truly does love him. I think there is real love between those two characters.
Yeah.
But, you know, they were on their way up, and now she sees him sinking lower and lower back into this dark world that they worked so hard to get out of.
Right.
But the love is still there, and the hope that they'll get out of there together is still there.
Yeah, maybe so. I guess people make like, you know, when decisions are made based on emotion, especially in long-term relationships like that, you can just overlook a lot of things.
She's seen it before. Yeah,
it's true. I suppose so. Maybe I didn't think about that as much, that she was with him before. I just feel like the way he's just treated her this whole season, and then it was such a sharp contrast. Didn't you feel the final scenes? And he has those tears in the club after they have their confrontation. She references 3 surgeries. Do we? We've never. Yeah, that's what I assumed.
Yes.
Because it was not. There's never been any violence or anything like that we've.
No, she said before that they referenced her one abortion before.
Right.
And maybe that's why she couldn't have kids. And now she finally comes out in the open and says, "No, I actually had 3."
I had 3. Sure. And yeah, and he says, "What? You didn't tell me this when I was, on top of the world. You tell me when I'm down. I'm not so good anymore." I don't know. I just I'm tired of it, unfortunately. I'm sorry, guys, if you're fans. I know we've harped on this so much on this show, and I don't want to be the person that's always like, I hate the scenes that he's in. I love Vince Vaughn. I want to like him. Hopefully it'll swing around in the final few episodes, but the other thing that's really interesting
His
is
scenes just aren't as fun.
No, they're just not as compelling.
They're just all like businessy and corrupt, and I'm just like, I get it. I get it.
We have 3 episodes left. I want to talk about. We're going to talk about Woodrow here in a minute, but with 3 episodes left, we start to get into the territory where it's reasonable to expect a main character could die.
And there's a lot of them this season.
Yeah, it's very hard to imagine in the first half, right? Like when nobody believed that Vince Vaughn or that Colin Farrell was dead when he took that shotgun blast. We all were fully like, that's a fake. Who would be the one to die? I wonder.
Or are we placing bets? If it's got to be one to go?
Maybe. I mean, predictions will be a better place to do this, probably.
Okay, well,
let's save it.
Predictions, we'll place a bet.
Yeah, okay.
All right, think of the stakes.
I want to talk about my man, Taylor Kitsch. Officer Woodrow, detective, now newly appointed Detective Woodrow, and his scenes. He had a couple big ones this episode. He had a big confrontation with his mother,
Mama,
who there's a weird relationship with. It's very strange. I want to we should talk about what we think is actually going on there.
Okay.
There was a scene with him, doing the old vodkas in my iced tea for dinner, or sweet tea or whatever he's drinking. Fills it up with vodka and just drains it. There was that scene, and then there's the scene when they are they're like, what is it? Some sort of litigation. He's got his
with the actress
Catherine Davis and his CO, and then the actress who's and he's saying I didn't do anything. I'm innocent. Those are kind of his big scenes this episode, unless I'm forgetting one.
And then the end.
And then the ending, sure.
Up in Greenville.
Right, with Bezzarides.
Yes.
So let's go one by one.
Okay.
Let's start with the mom scene.
I love this scene
Did
so
you?
much. It's one of my favorite scenes of this whole episode.
He got pretty intense.
Yeah, well, they both did.
Yeah.
I just love Mom getting married, Mother of God. And that's her reaction, because that's what she wanted as a son.
Yeah.
Mom getting married, Mother of God.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it. I didn't write down who that actress is who plays his mom, but she is so fantastic.
She's good.
She balances this character so well of someone who is somewhat deplorable.
Yeah.
But you also get the sense that she does love her son.
Right.
I just think the balancing act she's pulling off is fantastic.
She's a bit cartoonish. She's a bit cartoonish. I mean, not
She's a little stereotypical.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, a couple things. Earlier on, you can have your old room when he was going to stay over in an earlier episode. There is that weird tone of some sort of like incest sexual thing, right?
There's a tone of it, yeah. She definitely was massaging his thigh, and you know.
I can't quite decide what to make of it.
I can't either.
It could just be she was a dancer. Maybe she was somebody who trying to like use her sort of like sexual energy. She's one of those people you make people want to have sex with you. That's a tactic for some women, especially women dancers and prostitutes, things like that. So could just be that's her way of relating to men. And her son is like a fully formed man. He's a grown-ass man, so that's how she relates to him now. There was that. He goes for the money, the $20,000 from Afghanistan. It was Afghanistan, right? That's what he says?
That's what he said, yes.
And she says, I thought you left it for me. And he says $20,000. And she's a lush. And then they have this exchange. And she says, I know about you, Polly.
I know about you and your weirdness.
Yeah.
And the boys.
And the boys, right.
Oh, yeah.
So he just hates that. Because he hates himself. He hates himself.
Oh, he hates himself.
Yeah. He has so much self-loathing.
It's such an interesting relationship that they have. I don't know if it's gotten incestuous or if she's just used him throughout his life as a comfort, as a manly constant, right? Something that she was obviously lacking. Forever. No one's ever stuck around. So whether it's just like a, not necessarily a sexual comfort, but just a manly comfort.
Sure. Familiarity, companionship, something.
Cuddle up next to each other on the couch and just get a little too close where it's just really uncomfortable. Yeah. But I don't know if she ever crossed that line.
Hard to know. They've definitely given us some ammunition there as far like just a couple lines and a couple weird looks.
And there's utter resentment towards him too.
Well, she says you ruined my career. Right. I love when mother characters use the line, I carried you for 9 months. Because it's like, yeah, I know. I was not in existence yet. I wasn't born yet. You can't hold against me that you got pregnant. Like, I couldn't tell you not to. I wasn't even alive yet, you know?
Resentment.
Yeah, I think it's
a place to take it out. You know, it's the only vehicle in which you can take out this frustration.
I do think, but I just think that the idea of a baby being carried for 9 months being something that, like, for instance, there's actually a great line in Collateral where it's the same line, actually, and Jamie Foxx's character is complaining to Tom Cruise, and he's saying, you know, all she does is criticize me, and he's like, get her flowers. He's like, I'm not going to get her flowers. She's not going to care. And Cruise looks at him and he goes, she carried you in her womb for 9 months. And, like, it's like, well, yeah, but that's just a given. You know what I mean?
Not my fault.
I mean, I guess we owe our mothers something because they carried us from. I mean, we do. It's just it's like, I just find it as like an interesting stance when a character uses that as a line, because what are you supposed to say to it?
Well, there's nothing to say to it.
Exactly.
Because there's no argument. That's why you say it.
Right.
That's why it's ammunition, because you can't deny it.
Right.
You're right.
Yep.
You did. Sorry. Not my fault, but
Yeah.
can't do anything about it. It was me.
Yeah, so it was a big explosion from Taylor Kitsch. I love the guy, huge fan of him. I think he's a talented actor. I don't think he's quite there yet on the level. Like, Colin Farrell's like stealing scenes. Like, he's just blowing my mind. And Taylor Kitsch is close, but I don't quite buy it.
Well, this was the first time I feel like he had an opportunity to really.
Oh, last week though, no, because he has like these crying in the cab, and he's had his best scene in the show. I thought so far is the scene in the car with Colin Farrell.
I forgot
when
that I
he's
wasn't
crying,
here last week.
and he's like, I've always done what they've told me. I did everything they asked. It's never enough. That whole scene, I like that scene a lot. That was
Okay, fair enough. I agree. And I've agreed from the very beginning, as I've said it from the beginning. I don't find him to be that compelling.
Yeah.
To watch.
Sure.
I find him to be somewhat one note. Sorry,
Yeah.
ladies. He doesn't do it for me.
Sorry, Ben. Sorry, ladies.
But yeah, I don't think his performance really stands up in stature to the others that we're getting from Colin Farrell and from Rachel McAdams.
They're the two. Yeah.
They're freaking killing
They're
it.
killing it.
Left and right.
McAdams is so good. Yeah, okay, so that's the first scene. The second scene we're going to talk about is the scene where they are in the courtroom. It's not courtroom. It's like some sort of a conference room.
Yeah, it's like a mediation sort of thing. I don't know if that's the right word.
Yeah, and there's not as much here. There's not as much to it. I mean, the actress is very, she's a total cartoon character. He's a detective now. I think it was just sort of like set the stakes, right?
Yeah. And just to make sure that we know that case hasn't died.
Right.
That's still in play.
It's a thing.
That's still an issue.
Yeah. So I didn't take a whole lot from that, but we can connect it immediately to the dinner that he has with his fiancée, his pregnant fiancée, and her mother, and the vodkas that he's drinking. And it's just...
Well, he has to medicate.
He's just so uncomfortable. He's in such an uncomfortable part of his life.
Oh, yeah. For everywhere from the suit and tie to being with a mother and
to being
who
with
wants to move in.
To being with a woman.
To being with a woman on the regular, no matter how hot she is, because that girl is hot.
She's hot.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is not comfortable in his skin by any means.
Yeah.
He just wants that baby and wants that sense of normalcy.
Right. Do we think, so when he says that was my, just jumping back to the scene with his mother, because I thought about this, the $20,000, that was my stake.
Yeah, I don't know.
I bled for this money. So are we supposed to derive from that in fact some of the foul play he's claimed that he wasn't in, right? In that mediation, he's like, I wasn't there. I wasn't in that city. I wasn't in that, because he's referencing
something of Black Mountain,
something that happened. Are we supposed to suspect that $20,000 maybe means that he was?
Probably.
Right? Because it was like a mercenary team.
Yeah.
I don't think it was like the military.
I don't really know much about this.
Yeah.
But yes, that's what I'm gathering, like the best of the best too, is for hire.
Right.
For the military.
Exactly, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Yeah, the scene at dinner was just...
Why would you hide that at your mom's place when your mom is that mom who is drunk all the time, playing slots, men in and out? Like, why?
Yeah, I know.
And it's just a small little trailer. Of course she's going to know every nook and cranny of that little thing. Of course she's going to find it. You can't hide that.
It wasn't like... It wasn't like in Dumb and Dumber where like the briefcase opens and it's full of like owe you ones.
Oh, yeah.
It was like, it's just gone. I spent every penny of the 20 grand before you ever came back to check if there was any of it. I just spent 20,000.
I thought it was for me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Ma?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
I thought it
Great.
was, yeah, I thought that you were suggesting you were going to help me out a little at this point in my
finally.
life. Yeah, anyway.
That was a dumb move, if you ask me.
Yeah, so the final scene here is with Bezzarides and Woodrow, and they go out to, where were they?
In Guerneville.
Okay, so is that NorCal?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. So they go out there and they find this, and this was based on the last location that she called, the missing girl called from.
Yes,
Right?
Vera. And that wagon wheel chandelier, was that in the pictures too, or am I making that up?
Not sure.
Which is why I'm thinking that it's Northern California. Guerneville. It sounds Northern California. I should know. I went
Yeah.
to school up there.
Oh, really?
I did.
Where'd you go to school?
Sonoma.
Oh, okay.
And lived in San Fran.
So yeah, they show up, and what she sees, like, what is it, crow, or like ravens or vultures? Some kind
Carrion?
of... Carrion. That's
Yes.
Right. Are those like flesh-eating
I think they're
birds?
like crow-like
Yeah.
things.
And so they wrap around back and they find this like little shed, and there's the chair that has like, duct tape or something, shackles of some
and
kind
there's
of
arterial
blood.
spray all over the place.
Yeah.
It's
So-
a bloody shack.
So now we're getting into some weird torture stuff. We're getting into some.
Look how excited I am. I want to see it.
That's what True Detective's all about.
Yes.
And I was happy with that. And then, I mean, there's not much more to say about that, really. But then the last scene of the episode is what we should end on before we get into predictions.
Of course.
Which is after Colin Farrell finds out that he's been set up, and he knocks on Vince Vaughn's door. And
Yes.
that's a big one.
That's a big deal.
He's walking through the living room, and he's just, what's the closest location I have a hidden gun? In this sock drawer.
Oh, yeah. I'm still moving in. But first things first. Let's find a place for my gun.
If I was, I mean, like, if you were a crime boss, you'd probably have, how many guns do you think hidden in your home?
Oh, God.
A lot. You'd want to have one in almost every room, right?
At least.
Yeah.
And some knives stuck under the table.
Yeah.
And extra clips. I don't know.
Sure. I don't know.
I'm a bad gangster,
I'm not a crime boss,
No.
but yeah. So Colin Farrell knocks on the door. Yeah. Who's that? This is after like the touching scenes between Jordan and Frank, which again I don't care about. But
I do.
Yeah, but she cares about him. And then that's what we end on. So I guess probably, considering we all know the stakes, we should probably just get into predictions because there's a decent amount of them now.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
We're just going. So there's only two of us.
Yes.
Should we do like a couple each, maybe?
Well, I don't really have that many.
Yeah, okay.
I don't really have any.
We can, like, postulate, we can
I
theorize.
have a really bad time predicting the show. I have no idea what's going to happen. And they're really not solid at all, but I'll throw something out there.
Okay.
Pitler talked about the Chisani family and how they're, how did he refer to them?
Yeah, I remember this. He referenced them as
like the wife wasn't ready for, hold please, that they're highly inventive.
He says highly inventive.
That the Chisani patriarchs are highly inventive.
And she wasn't ready for something. She wasn't ready
for that. She couldn't handle it. So that's why he put her in a mental institution, and then she killed herself.
She killed herself, right.
Much like Bezzarides' mom did.
Yes.
So I'm hoping that we find out a little bit more about what this Chisani patriarchal inventiveness entails.
And what do you think?
Well, I think it has something to do with that bloody chair.
Okay. So that's all, it's all related. That would make sense.
Yeah.
As I said, we're getting into the final three. I'm predicting a character is going to die, and I think it's going to happen in episode 7.
Okay.
I think you'll get the second to last episode murder, and I guess it's probably going to be Woodrow.
You think it's Woodrow?
You're not going to kill Colin Farrell. There's almost no chance I can imagine killing Colin Farrell. You could kill
already
Vince.
tried once.
Could kill Vince Vaughn, but I don't see that coming, and I don't think Bezzarides dies. I think it's probably Woodrow dies. Is Woodrow or Vince Vaughn? It's either Woodrow or Vince Vaughn is going to die in the next 2 episodes. That's my bold prediction.
Well, if I had to pick one of those, I think it's going to be...
It's tough.
I mean, I want to say Vince Vaughn, but it seems like the obvious one.
Right.
Because everyone's out for him anyway.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people coming after him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I also think... this is just me real fast, though.
Sure.
The guy who was driving Vince Vaughn, Frank Semyon,
Yeah.
looked eerily like the guy in the picture that he gave to Velcoro years and years ago. And I think that's the same guy.
Interesting. Okay.
That's what I think.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in and checking out the True Detective After Show for Season 2, Episode 5. And I am Ben Bateman. You can find me on social media at Ben Bateman Media on Instagram and Twitter.
I'm Julia Cearley. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter with my name, Julia Cearley, JuliaCearley.
We will be joined by a hopefully full panel next week, I believe, as well as a special guest, unless I'm mistaken. So check in with us there. Feel free to rate us. All of that, iTunes, YouTube. Thank you so much for checking in, guys, and we will see you next week.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.